And 3, 2, 1.
0.
0.
I think we were
Did
a
I
little
lag
off.
or did y'all stop?
Seemed like you lagged.
Okay. Let's do that one more time just in case.
3, 2, 1.
0. Somehow, Dan, during the editing of the last show, I had you pushed up like slightly, maybe like a quarter second too fast. And I only noticed it every now and then. And I'm like, man, Dan's really running over people. And then I was like, oh, no, that's happening through the whole show. Maybe that's me.
It was just Dan.
Typical Dan, that's for sure.
No, exactly. I was like,
What are you talking about?
No,
Dan's always talking over everybody.
I know it, man.
All right, we should get at this.
Let's do
All we
it.
have is 5 minutes of dog talk. All right.
Dog
That's what's going
talk.
at the front of the show.
Welcome to Dog User Space.
Boy,
let's talk about Neon. Yeah.
Let's do it. Coming up in this episode, we take a ride with KDE Plasma's truest form, shamelessly plug a podcast, get live with Kden, and pick December's distro, which is... Stick around. Hey, and welcome to the Linux User Space. I'm Leo.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.
So I smell some pie cooking in the oven. What do you got going on, Joe?
Pumpkin, peach,
More
cherry.
technical. I guess baking can be technical, right?
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
me a
It can.
pumpkin pie.
Hey, what about the apple lattice one? Like, that's pretty technical. I feel like there's some...
And the Apple M1, right? Have you tried that flavor yet?
I have not.
Oh.
The Apple M1? Oh,
Yeah, that
man.
ARM chip that's
Yeah.
crushing absolutely everything. Something, ARM, something.
Yeah.
What about an ARM pie?
I don't...
ARM pie?
Yeah.
I like that. I could get behind that. In fact, I do get behind that. Yeah, I've got some ARM pie stuff I'm playing with.
Smells like a berry pie, maybe.
A berry.
Oh, blackberry. Blackberry pie?
Blackberry. This is an alien pie. It's an
Alien.
Android pie.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had a little project I was trying to get running at work where we've got guys in the shop processing stuff and done tickets. Anyways, a lot of boring stuff. But to get it done, it was invest in a bunch of new software, which costs thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I thought, well, let's see what I can do with a pie. So there's an Android app that runs for this particular, and it's doesn't even have to have like the Google Play Store or anything. It's an APK that we can install. So I thought I did some Googling and I found out that Lineage OS, which is basically, I think, running Android 10, can install on the Pi. And then I hooked that up to a touchscreen, like a 24-inch touchscreen, which I mounted next to everything, and away we went. And so far, great. And it was really, man, it was like I think maybe like a 5-minute, 10-minute process.
Really?
To get it up. Yeah, it was like, and you can even on there, you can get the Google Apps and all that stuff going in there.
Really? I know you
yeah,
could do
yeah.
that with Android. So what are you running on it? What version of Android?
It's Android 10, I think is what it is.
And it's Lineage, you said.
Yeah, it's a Lineage OS 17.01. It's 17.1. Now, it's not an official Lineage OS. This website, constakang.com, this individual has set it up to where, so you got to have a Pi 4 with at least 2 gigs of RAM.
Okay.
But, I mean, it seems to be running pretty good. I was reading through most of it, all the audio, GPIO, all that good stuff's working, USB, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that stuff. The only thing I think, which it's not a big deal for me, was hardware video decoding and encoding.
Oh, right. So is that H264 or is that HVAC?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Because I hadn't even looked at it. I hadn't got that far into it.
I know that wasn't a whole lot of a problem because I've got a Pi 4 with 4 gigs on it, and I tried Ubuntu 2010 for a little bit on it, and I did do some YouTube. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine.
Yeah, watchable. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So, yeah. So I'll update later as I get going with it, but got it on the Pi, got it running. The touchscreen worked flawlessly. It's like a 23-inch ViewSonic touchscreen that I'm gonna put a little cover on and mount up in the shop, and I'm gonna end up doing like 10 of them for these different workstations for the guys, so they can just tap their workflow. And so it was either that or go buy a bunch of like 10-inch Android tablets and it just that for the money, like I feel like Android, everybody has abandoned tablet mode. They're like, Apple, you win, you can have it, which is fine. But when the app is only on Android, so to get any decent Android tablet, you got to go to like a Samsung, and they're like $600-$700, and that's just, I can put a Raspberry Pi and a $150 monitor attached to it, and I'm good. Yeah. So $200, $250.
Seems like a better interface to be using. I mean, it's a bigger screen, so
yes,
I think
much bigger.
That's got to be better to use than a little 10-inch tablet comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these guys are looking at orders like they might have 50 orders on the screen. Yeah, so you don't want it so tiny. So,
yeah, I was going to say the number one complaint that I ever had with older folks or just people that were staring at a screen all day was how do you make it bigger?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking well over twice the size screen. Yeah, makes it way easier to check things out. That's awesome.
Nice.
How about you, Leo? You've been messing around with some Pi stuff.
Yeah. I got so I refuse to buy Ring doorbell, Nest doorbell, this, that, the other, whatever. So I'm just, how do you roll your own? And I had, the last time I was in Dallas, I went to Micro Center and on a whim bought a bunch of Pi Zero stuff. And I had no intention on doing anything particular with it. I just bought it because it was like, it's on sale. It's $5. Okay, I'll take one. So I bought it, all the fixins. I think it was like $50 total. I bought the camera too, but it wasn't for the Pi Zero. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Anyway, a few months after just tinkering with it to see what I could do with it, I decided to do motionEyeOS. And it is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I've got it set up now where all I need now is a suction cup and a little like claw thing to hold the Pi itself. But I've got it to where it will trigger on motion, it'll record a video, it'll take about 10 pictures, and it'll email it to me, all of it. And that is fantastic. That's all I wanted. Out of a Ring doorbell or whatever, that's all I really wanted. I've kind of got it situated to the point where it behaves right, where like the leaf doesn't trigger it. Yeah. But a dog or a cat probably would. But of course, it's like I know when I get mail, I know when someone's coming up to the door, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And it's extremely fantastic. There are other hooks too. I've got it to email, but there are hooks that I haven't gotten figured out yet. But to hook it into Discord, into Telegram, into Slack, and all these other chat programs,
right?
That'll be project number 2 because getting emailed 10 images is not the easiest way to deal with that stuff all the time. And I've got a Pi 4 running Nextcloud that I'm finally going to decommission this old box that I've got running Nextcloud on it. I did not believe that a Pi, even a Pi 4, would be able to handle Nextcloud day to day. And it's running that fantastic as well. I'm not worried too much about, everybody complains about, but you're not getting the full USB 3 throughput. And I mean, that's true, but everything's going over 1 gigabit Ethernet. Yeah. So it's all moot anyway. So as long as I can pull approximately 80 to 100 megabytes per second, then I'm golden. This is fantastic, and that the Pi can definitely push that. So I'm very happy with these projects, man. I can't buy Pis fast enough anymore. Just every little thing I want to solve the problem with a Pi.
Nice.
How's that camera on that that you're using?
The camera is fantastic. It is the Pi Zero that can't handle the higher resolution. So it can actually take 1080p, actually bigger than that. It'll do 1080p video at 30 frames. It will do that. But yeah, the Pi can't handle the encoding of that. So I think for the Pi, if you're not actively monitoring it, you can get 720p video at 30 frames and 1080p-ish photos. The thing that's going to kill you on the photos is the speed of your SD card.
Okay.
Because it can take those photos fast.
Yeah.
But writing it to the card and then wrapping it up in an email and then sending it to you, it'll choke a little bit on something like that. So I usually get 720p-ish photos and I do 480p-ish video. That way it's not choking on itself. But if I were to do a Pi 2 or Pi 3, then yeah, it would be, you could get much higher quality out of it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, and that's even now, like just even pricing them out. Like I was looking, I had a little project like that. I was going to try and grab like a Pi 3. And then I was looking, and to get one of those, I might as well just buy a 2 gig Pi 4. I mean, the price is...
Oh, yeah. They don't really go down that much.
Yeah, at this point. Unless you were buying like 100 of them, you know, where you, the $5 or whatever it was, if you can even find the 3s.
Right.
That was the thing. I think you're almost paying a premium to get an older piece of hardware.
Just stick with the new stuff. You'll be happier anyway. It's got more performance.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got is the old stuff right now. I've got a couple of Pi 3s, and I do have a Pi 0, but that runs RetroPie. So that's what I'm running on that.
How much can you get on that RetroPie? How recent can you get?
I'm really only running like original Nintendo stuff, Game Boy stuff. I don't think you could get too much further than that.
Yeah, I remember my Pi 1 struggled a bit on some Super Nintendo games, so it was, you got to be really choosy with those, and I think that's what the Pi 0 is, right?
Basically.
Pi 1.
Yeah. It will run, some Super Nintendo stuff, but nothing newer than that, for sure.
For sure.
So my Pi 3, the one I have like in service all the time, that runs my IRC bouncer. It runs Quasel Core.
Cool.
So I connect to that with my, GUI IRC client, and it's nice because I can use multiple clients. I also have Quasel Droid on my phone, so I can connect to my my core, and I get all my IRC stuff that way. It's always connected and looks nice.
Can't beat
Pi
that.
all the things.
Yeah.
Pi the world.
I think that's the answer. That's the answer to everything. If you need something small done, just throw a Pi at it.
Well, that's it. It takes very little energy, and it can sit there and run in the corner, and I don't have to do anything with it. It just, updates, and it just runs.
Yeah. So speaking of energy, what is it? It's like the equivalent of an LED light bulb.
Yeah.
It's like 5 watts or something like that.
So it's fantastic.
These things are crazy awesome, man. I think the most power hungry mine gets is because I'm running an external USB hard drive off of it. That's where the wattage really comes from.
Yeah, the drive probably takes more power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there we are. KDE Neon for the win?
Yeah.
Maybe?
For the something.
Let's find out.
As long as it doesn't crash, right?
Yeah. All right, guys. So, yes, we have spent a month with KDE Neon. And just to kind of give a little back, because we got some messages early on going, what are you doing? Neon's not a distro or official distro. What?
They even specifically say it. They say it's not a distro.
Yeah, it's right there on the website.
So, our idea for looking at KDE Neon is that we wanted something, again, if you go back to when we announced it, the fresh KDE had just come out, Plasma 5, and it just got everybody a little bit excited about KDE again. And so we thought, you know what? Hey, what better way to deep dive into KDE at large than KDE Neon? Because it pretty much is kind of like a rolling release of KDE software, but it's on top of Ubuntu's stable base.
Dan, how did you put it?
I said it was like drinking from the KDE fire hose. I think that's how I put it. Yeah, KDE fire hose.
Oh, man. You said it, and I was like, actually, yeah. Because almost every time I open up Discover, there's another update where it's like, hey, there's a new framework. Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yes.
Let's update that.
We've updated again.
Here's a new minor revision. Oh, all right, cool. Let's install that.
I don't think you could go a couple of days without getting, some bit from KDE that was just updated.
Yep, it felt like I was back on Manjaro again, where it just every time you boot it up, there was some update, and a lot of them were obviously the Ubuntu updates. But I mean, the majority of these are here's some QT flavor for you.
Yeah.
Here's this application update. Here's this new snapshot stuff. So yeah, drinking from a fire hose, I think, is the perfect way to put that. Everything new right in your face.
Yeah, the KDE Firehose.
Yep.
I like it. It's also probably one of their 200 plus apps that they developed. KDE Firehose. I'm sure we can find it. What is it? K Firehose or how would you do it? Yeah, something like that. K Firehose. Yep. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Neon is basically built on this Ubuntu base. So it really took off in 2015 is when Neon really got going. As of 2016, they were on 16.04. In 2018, they rebased on 18.04. And here we are, August this year, 20.04. So we're on a current, base. So that's nice. You've got the stability there of Ubuntu. But it is nice to just, if you want to play with all the hotness, the KDE hotness, and that's your thing, it's kind of cool. And it's really to showcase and explore the Plasma desktop. So before we deep dive into a little bit of the history of KDE and Neon, we had some other pretty cool information.
Well, we had a question.
Yes, sorry,
that
guys.
was posed to us in Telegram by our good friend Bill. And he kind of wanted to get a reading on what the difference between all of this stuff is. So we kind of described what KDE Neon was, right? It sits on a stable Ubuntu 20.04 base, and you drink from the KDE Firehose.
Right.
And all of that stuff is new and fresh all the time, right off, right out of the oven, right there for you. So what is the difference between that and, say, Kubuntu 20.04 with the KDE backports?
The thing to take away is the backports are a bit of a snapshot in time, not the fire hose that you're always getting with Neon. So the backports are likely to be what you get in 2010. That'll be the first backport that you're going to get in 2004. And then as it goes on, even 2104 will probably get backported. But eventually, towards the tail end of the LTS, it'll be a little more difficult to backport some of those things. So you might even see fewer of those backports because the Qt version doesn't change in the LTS Ubuntu, where Neon will update some of the Qt bits that need to get updated in order to, get the newer stuff in there.
I know we had seen some information where on the 18.04 version of KDE Neons, I guess it's all one thing, but on those, on the 18.04 base, you ended up where toward the tail end of that, you started seeing people on Reddit and forums saying that, Telegram won't launch because QT this or QT that.
Yeah, you'll get into weird dependency issues and it won't line up, right?
Yeah. And I think in both of those cases, one of the coolest things, though, is that a lot of times, not every time, obviously there are going to be, things where you just can't work around them, but a lot of times you can work around these issues by just taking Telegram or, whatever is based on QT that's breaking from Snapcraft, to get it as a snap or get it as a Flatpak or get it as an app image where it's all self-contained and it doesn't depend on something that may or may not be working. So if you're going to stay on KDE Neon even Kubuntu with backports, that may be your lifeline until the next major version, long-term support version comes out. So we had one other that was in that list, and that would be, so what is the difference between these two and if you were to do Kubuntu but rolling Rhino?
So rolling Rhino, that is going to be whatever the latest development branch of Ubuntu is. And that could vary during the development cycle, what you're getting. And that is going to be the latest that's available, that's for sure.
Yeah, like when you update, that's basically like going out and grabbing the nightly image, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it could be great, and it could not be great.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing onto itself. The other thing is you're still going to get the versions of Plasma software that are getting synced from Debian testing probably at this point. You're not going to necessarily get the Plasma stuff right from the fire hose like you do in Neon. So it's still really current, but it might not be the latest. It still might not be there.
And so now I'm going to add my own flavor into this one because this is just out of my own curiosity. KDE Neon versus Manjaro KDE. Mm-hmm. Would you be on about the same version?
Now, you might there, but like you said, some of the other things may still be lagging behind. So I don't, it's hard. It's its own thing. It stands by itself.
Right. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to cover all of that because as it was presented, I started to think, and I'm like, yeah, what is the difference between all of that? So yeah, I'm glad we got that information out there.
Yeah, cool stuff. And I believe I am running KDE Manjaro.
Yeah.
So on this machine, and I believe everything's pretty close.
Yeah.
On Manjaro. So you have all the Manjaro goodies, but again, you're dealing with more of an Arch-based system, delayed slightly. So on the other side, I guess with Neon, you're getting the latest KDE stuff and QT stuff, but your base isn't a moving target. So if you like that stability, perhaps you're just getting the typical Ubuntu updates, right, to the base system. Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah, you're going to be running the same kernel that you would have in Ubuntu, and it's not going to be, the latest that, Manjaro or an Arch is going to give you.
Now, one thing that I'm curious about, do we know if hardware enablement is on by default in Neon? So will you get 8 right now?
I've got 5.4 is what I've got.
Well, you've got 5.4 now because hardware enablement's not rolling out yet.
I see.
That happens...
probably the next point release. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would imagine so, because if it's, unless they've changed it, Ubuntu 2004 now has hardware enablement on by default, and you got to go turn it off, whereas 1804 had it off and you had to turn it on.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, unless something changes, KDE Neon is that way as well.
Yeah, I think you're correct, unless they change it, which we'll find out at the next point release.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Yeah. When we talk about whether or not we're going to keep this, we'll find out. Now, one of the things that we wanted to touch on was what is PKCon? What is this?
So PKCon, I guess, was intended to be a universal application update tool.
Yep.
And it updates more than just your OS base, but it also should work with other OS bases.
It was supposed to be the one updater to rule them all, right?
I think so. Yeah, exactly.
We need one standard, so let's create a whole new standard so that we just have one standard, and now it's just another standard in the standards.
Yeah, and it's not widely adopted, unfortunately, because I think it does have some potential to kind of be the one to rule them all.
And Neon went with PKCon because apt update and then apt upgrade does not always pull down the versions of QT that there are updates out there for.
Right.
And PKCon will do that. So if you look on KDE Neon's FAQ, they've got down at the bottom where it basically says you can use apt, just make sure you're using dist-upgrade every single time you do an upgrade. Otherwise, you'll be missing bits. And, reading between the lines there, sounds like things might break if you don't have the right bits of QT with the right bits of all the other stuff. So, just live with PKCon. I mean, if you like to live in the terminal for your updates, just PKCon.
Yeah, because
that'll take care of you.
Discover on the back end uses that already.
Correct.
And so it will update with PKCon.
Exactly. And actually, that was their recommendation, was just use Discover, because you're using a GUI anyway. Just click on the upgrade button and click on the upgrade button and you're done. Yeah, exactly.
And Discover did seem to be working pretty flawlessly on Neon. I didn't have any issues with Discover at all.
I think so. I think Discover's come a long ways. It's had a bad rap in the past, And that's unfortunate because I think it does provide a lot of value now, and it's a great graphical interface to use to install software and do updates. I used it the whole time that we were testing Neon, and it worked fine for me.
Very cool. All right, guys. So, that the answer to those questions, that really shows that there is a difference. There is a difference between using Neon versus Manjaro KDE or Kubuntu, and maybe that's some of the confusion out there on why would this exist. Now, KDE Neon does have two different flavors. Well, I say two different flavors, but two different options. Basically, you have a user-supported one, which is for us to go play around in, and then there's one for developers. So depending on what your goal is here, you would pick accordingly. So, but again, back to our purpose for talking about KDE Neon in the first place was really to let us showcase and talk about KDE Plasma, or as it is known way back in the day. Does anybody know what KDE stands for? Any idea?
Pick me.
Come on.
This is so good. Let me get my hair gel and my comb out. Hang on.
Okay. All right, Dan. Dan, what's KDE
It's
stand
the
for?
Cool Desktop Environment.
Cool Desktop Environment.
Cool with a K.
I know.
Just
Cool with a K.
make sure
Cool
you
with a
put
K.
that K in there. This is 1998, and we are typing cool in chat
Exactly.
right now.
Exactly. That's like, remember the Paula Abdul video with the cool cat?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like KOOL, the cartoon cat in the video. That's where we're at, kids.
Oh,
That's
man.
Yeah, that was such a good time.
A little blast from the
Yeah.
past, man. I love
big
this.
time for the three of us, I'm sure.
I
I
really wish they never changed the name, man.
I
I
know.
want them to stay
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah. So KDE, if you haven't realized, founded 1996.
Wow.
It's been around quite a while by Matthias Ettrich, a student at the University of Tübingen. I'm gonna go out on a limb. Yep, on a limb. Tübingen. And the reason he developed KDE, and I think this speaks to a lot of what we're going to talk about, he was frustrated by the lack of cohesiveness with applications in the Unix desktop.
Wait, hang on. It's 2020. Isn't that what everybody says?
Yeah, still even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Matthias. Still working on it. But his idea was to propose the creation of not just more apps, but paired with a desktop environment that users could have a look, feel, and consistent desktop user space. I also like that he used our show name in his quote, user space.
Yeah, he went back in time. He heard our show, went
He
back
did.
in
He went
time, and then made that reference. Yeah, you're
Yep.
welcome for that, by the way.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So thus, the cool desktop environment was born. And KDE was also kind of a play on CDE, which at the time was the common desktop environment, which had been put together by HP, IBM, and Sun Microsystems based on X11. X11, guys. Still working on X11.
Listen, it's solid, okay? It's only
so
abandonware
solid.
now.
It's
Nah,
yes.
it's still on life support.
But eventually the cool was dropped and never heard from again, like much of our hairstyles and music from the 90s.
God, it's so sad.
And
It is sad.
and it was switched to the K desktop environment, and finally KDE way down the road became the official branding. So KDE, or K Desktop Environment 1.0, was released in 1998 on July, and the press release in part here, and it is really more of a mission statement, and I think it really shapes how we see KDE and all that the work that they've put into it come to life. It says KDE seeks to fill the need for an easy-to-use desktop for Unix workstations, similar to the desktop environments found under macOS or Windows 95 NT. We believe that the Unix operating system is the best operating system available today. In fact, Unix has been the undisputed choice of the information technology professional for many years. Wow, things have not changed, guys. When it comes to stability, scalability, and openness, there is no competition like Unix. To Unix. However, the lack of an easy-to-use contemporary desktop environment for Unix has prevented Unix from finding its way onto the desktops of the typical computer user in offices and homes.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
They stay the same. Is that not just a blast from the past, but just
still relevant?
Here we are 22 years later.
You just copy paste 1998 to 2020,
exactly.
and it's the same exact thing. We're saying the same things. We're trying to accomplish the same things, and just wait because there's more.
Yes. So as it goes on, he says, with KDE, there is now an easy-to-use contemporary desktop environment available for Unix, together with a free implementation of Unix such as Linux. Unix/KDE constitutes a completely free and open computing platform available of anyone free to charge, including its source code for anyone to modify. While there will always be room for improvement, we believe to have delivered a viable alternative to some of the more commonly found and commercial operating systems and desktop combinations available today. It is our hope that the combination of Unix and KDE will finally bring open, reliable, stable, and monopoly-free computing to the average computer user.
All right, and we can stop the history there because it totally did exactly what they set out to do.
They hit their mark.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of the 90s, it was like Robin Hood. You remember when he shot the arrow and it spun and then never mind. Camera tricks. Okay, I'll move on. So I was looking at some of the screenshots from K Desktop 1.0, and it felt like Windows 3.1, Windows 95, but it definitely had that Linux modular kind of look to it. I don't know if you guys looked at any of the desktops, but I remember I had a job back then, and it was to convert. It's like I think we end up doing like close to 2,000 desktops from Windows 3.1 to Windows 95, and I got so sick of Windows 3.1. But that same type, the bar at the top, and then there's a button at the bottom. It was kind of this little blend back then. But some of the things that came from that originally was Kmail. Kmail's been around a long time. Conqueror's been around a long time. But drama right from the start.
Wait. We got drama in the Linux community?
Stop it.
That's crazy.
Hang on. Wait a minute.
You know what?
Hold the phone.
It's not true. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
Well, even more so. Some of the names, things. So we know that KDE is based on QT. Okay, so QT at that time was developed and owned by Trolltech. Yes, I said that correct. Trolltech.
It's like they were foreshadowing the Linux ecosystem, weren't they?
The company starts up in 2020, and it's called Trolltech. 1, you don't trust anything they say. 2, you don't let them have a Twitter account. And 3, you run.
It's different times, though, Joe.
Different times. I know. Trolltech. So they thought it was cool at the time. I thought maybe they were into troll dolls, because that was probably
they were cool
at that time.
You said Twitter. Just imagine if Twitter existed back then. Do you think it would be any more tame than it is now?
No.
No. Oh, goodness. So Trolltech, the QT free edition license, that's what KDE or K Desktop environment was using, but it was not compliant with Free Software Foundation because it didn't allow redistributions of modified versions. So this was a problem because here you have this major player coming in saying all the right things. Let's build this desktop environment. Let's make apps that really draw and tie everything together. Let's make a cohesive desktop experience for the users, a la Mac OS, a la iOS, a la even Android, you could say at some point has, and today we have plenty of Linux examples, but back then there really wasn't, if you were on Windows, you were all over the place. Mac was trying, but it still didn't have this level yet.
I mean, it was cohesive.
Yeah.
It was just, black and whitish.
It was just a lot of silver going on. So flash forward just a little bit further because they have this major piece of this desktop environment and it's considered proprietary by the community that's trying to welcome it and build upon it and, bring it in. So with QT 2.0, Trolltech changes to a free software license. However, it's still not compatible. It's the QPL. It's not compatible with the GPL, according to the Free Software Foundation. So finally, And the problem with it was basically if Trolltech were to go bankrupt or get bought out, there was no protections or guarantee that QT wouldn't fall under some other restrictive license because the new owner could do whatever they wanted with it, or it would just fade away and somebody else owned it and it went out of business. So thankfully, everybody got together, did a little powwow, and compromises were made. And this led to the creation of the KDE Free QT Foundation. And this guaranteed basically that QT would fall under the BSD license if no free or open source version was released during a 12-month period. So if development stopped or got bought or purchased or blah, 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 any of the things that could happen, they were covered. They at least had it to where it could still be used, if I understand that correctly.
A little thought experiment. What do you think would have happened? Let's say that the KDE Free QT Foundation did not get this done, and it would not default to a BSD license, when catastrophe struck. Let's say KDE fell to the wayside, and the license was incompatible with everything, and it just got forgotten. What would be desktop number 2?
Cinnamon.
You think?
What else? I mean, you got GNOME. Well, you know what? Those developers would have gone and done something else, right?
Exactly, but what? What would they have done?
Yes,
would they have
right.
teamed
So
up
what
with
would
one of the other desktops, or would they have, done something else?
They would have gone to GNOME, and then these guys would have kept GNOME 2 going, and GNOME 3 would have gone off this way, and then we would have had GNOME 2.5, and I think
it depends on the timing, right? Because
right,
I don't know.
So you're saying you have GNOME and you have GNOME, and there was a legal battle.
Yes.
And then you have to say the one or the other. Now we're in some kind of weird...
Maybe they would go KNOME, and then we'd have KNOME.
Oh!
That's what it would be.
KNOME.
The
That's
latest KDE app developed, app number 201, KNOME.
There it is.
It's GNOME Shell in KDE.
KNOME Shell.
KNOME Shell.
Feels like an April Fool's joke.
We're back in the sewer from last episode. we have fallen from the path here. So yes, all of that takes place. However, it gets resolved. So your question is moot because here we are 20 some years later, and we have KDE and we have QT.
Thankfully,
and so
we
it's
do.
all there.
I'm so happy we do.
Yes. So now we're up the year 2000. Y2K bug's been squashed because we're in October. Yes. All that work. Mm-hmm. All those ATM machines that didn't spit out all that money for me.
I know.
K Desktop Environment 2.0 is released, and their focus here is introducing more applications. And you will see this as a common thread. KDE is they make a good attempt on their mission statement because they're developing this environment, but man, more applications. We see Conqueror get developed some more. The K Office suite. Which reading through these words, K-Word, K-Spread, K-Illustrator, K-Chart, K-Present, how did they not get sued by Microsoft?
Because there's a K on the front.
There's a K in the front of that, Joe.
Obviously different.
Do you remember Microsoft in 2000? This is the Internet Explorer.
Yeah. These guys were chasing people with
battles.
hatchets.
Oh, I know.
Suing everybody into the ground. This, by the way, is my first taste of Linux. This is right around the time. I can't remember exactly if it was KDE 2 or KDE 3, but I looked at those screenshots of KDE 2, and it was just like flashback. Nostalgia hit me right in the face. And this was me installing Slackware and deciding what desktop I needed and, K this and K that and everything K is K is K. I was like, yeah, cool. K, let's put it on. And
okay.
Yep. And so, yeah, that whole theme... I feel it in my bones. And I think this is probably why I really kind of enjoy falling back to Plasma every now and then.
Yeah. It's interesting as we look through because a few years later, we get to the third generation, K Desktop Environment 3.0. And the first thing that jumped out at me is, man, if you flip back through, do like a picture flip on these things, like a flip book, is color. You're like, oh, wow, color.
Yeah.
Look at that, because everything was like silver and gray and I mean, and desktop computing seemed to be that way. If you weren't in a terminal, if you were looking at a desktop, I mean, Windows, it had gone, but Mac was very gray and silver. That Unix C, they all had that same.
They wanted to give it that metallic feel. Everything had a gradient too, by the way. This is Web 2.0.
Yes.
Right when Web 2.0 happened and everything was a bubble or it was a gradient of some kind. And yeah, but I love it. And you know what there wasn't? This is our uphill both ways kind of thing right now. There was no dark mode.
Oh, no,
There's no dark mode here.
No,
if you're computing in the dark, you just have to take that in the eyeballs.
Yeah.
But they had gray mode.
That's right. Yeah.
It came default, and you could change it to gray mode because it was always gray mode. So silver gray. There you go. That's
it can be any color you want as long as that color is gray.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You can have all the gray you want. Yes. So very much KDE, but yes, you can, no drastic changes, but everything feels very iterative, right? If you look, you don't have any time through this whole KDE experience, even up to today, you don't have that Windows 8, that GNOME 3 moment. Everything still feels, I feel like if you were on KDE 5, you could go back and at least know what's going on with KDesktop 1, KDesktop 2, KDesktop 3. They stuck to what they felt was the paradigm that was going to work for the system. Added a lot of bells and whistles, of course, along the way. But we also see here from version 1, which is Qt1. So their version changes can't change with that Qt toolkit there. So Qt2, that KDesktop 2. With 3, we also see some time added. So they only had a couple of years to develop on 1 and 2. But now 3, they're going to develop for 6 years.
Yeah.
So now you have these different releases. You have a lot more iteration changes. So you can get 3.1, 3.2, all the way up. And a lot more applications. K-Wallet, Contact, Color Paint, Copeat.
I remember Copeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ahead of its time, man. Tied in with AOL, MSN, Yahoo, ICQ, IRC, Jabber. It tied in with all of those things. Pretty cool IM client. Back in the day.
I'm convinced they stayed with version 3 because it rhymed with KDE 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that way they could just do a rhyme scheme the whole time.
The whole time. So we move up 2008, January 11th, KDE Software Compilation 4. So we're no longer KDesktop. We are KDE Software Compilation 4. And the reason for that is you see a migration here where they are trying to break some of this out, because think about it. They've got this development going on. They've got the desktop environment going on and all the application going on. So this is their first attempt to kind of break this out. So they have 3 separate teams working on 3 different projects that all tie together, but they have their own release cadences and they can work and develop independently. Also, KDE 4 or QT4, do you know what else that enabled? Have you used any Qt applications on any other OS besides Linux?
Like Windows?
Like Windows and Mac
Yeah.
OS? Yes, Qt. With Qt 4.0.
Yeah.
Before that, it only was working on Windows had its own kind of, I think, fork or its own kind of development. But now with this change with Qt 4.0, they were compatible and you could develop cross-platform there, basically. Interestingly, also, so one of the things I think all of us remember about Qt 4 and KDE 4, well, I'll read this and you tell me. So the goal of Qt4 was lower resource usage and stability.
Boy, I don't think the early days fit into that box. No.
Surely not.
It might have towards the end of KDE 4.
But everybody had ran away.
There, but no, because the early days were awful as far as resource usage.
A little crashy, a little heavy.
A little crashy.
Lots of memory. Holy cow.
In fact, the Linux father himself, quote here, Linus Torvalds, who was on GNOME and had gone to KDE and had been on KDE for quite a while. So in an interview there when 4.0 released, it says on why he switched back to GNOME from KDE, he refers to KDE 4.0 as a disaster calling it a break everything model and half-baked. So when they did come into Qt 4.0, they removed some features from 3.5, and I think that really ruffled a lot of feathers.
Well, hold on. From the king of don't break user space.
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to ruffle some feathers, man.
Exactly. Yeah, him and Greg KH, we were talking about Greg KH recently, right? He was pushing like, do not break user. Like,
your users trust you. Don't do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it would make sense. And actually, I read through another article that because I wasn't on KDE at this time, but that where they weren't even recommending really.
They
were recommending everybody stay on 3.5 until I think 4.2 or something.
It was a while into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't until 4.3 that a lot of the 3.5 functionality was back, and in that release alone, they squashed 10,000 plus bugs and implemented almost 2,000 feature requests.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Unfortunately, like in the process, I think they lost a lot of their users as well.
Yes. And that was, see, because I remember listening and everybody talking about, and I know this was all during the 4.0 period where, back when we talked about KDE, like, oh, well, if you got modern hardware.
Right.
And you don't mind bugs, and it can be pretty, but man, is it heavy, and this and that. And it had GNOME and KDE kind of as these two heavy hitters, well, at least GNOME 3, at the latter part of KDE 4. They were like if you got, an i7, you can run it, but it's not XFCE.
Yeah.
So absolutely. There was some struggles there with 4.0, and it took years. I know in my mindset it took years to really accept that, oh, okay, that was then, this is now, because you get this taste in your mouth from being burned, right? I mean, how many times have you been burned by something and you're
not
like, nope,
touching that again.
I don't care what they say. Nope, not doing it. So 4.0 brought with it a lot of updates to key apps that we're still using today: Dolphin, Krunner, Plasma widgets, all those new desktop effects, little genie thing where you're anybody who likes the bling, all
wobbly
that stuff
windows.
was wobbly windows. Oh, the blur.
If you wanted to put a KDE theme on there that looked like Mac, well, there's your feature. You got to have that bit.
You got to,
or at least at that time. Now it's not so much.
Right. Also, with 4.2, that's when we start seeing the name Plasma. The Plasma 4 desktop, it had come out with 4.0, but it really wasn't featured. But basically, Plasma 4 was replacing three central areas: K Desktop Shell, Kicker Taskbar, and Super Caramba widget engine, which were all from KDE 3. And prior.
Yeah, and everybody knows about the Super Caramba.
Yeah.
Oh, Super Caramba. Oh, yes. So they had basically spun this KDE software compilation into three separate products. You had KDE Plasma, you had KDE frameworks, and KDE applications. And they, again, as we mentioned, they all had their own release cadence. But that's where we see this focus on Plasma. So, and that's the desktop environment, and that's the world we're living in. So, yet, even with all the development in 4.0, the elephant in the room is still performance. A lot of them, even Linus, later on, he said there's potential there. Like, they saw the potential. There's a couple interviews from Ars Technica. They see it. It's kind of like using something and you go, oh, if just, kind of, I was thinking how we felt when we were using Deepin. Like, you see the potential, but there's just some instability and just some underlying things that it's just missed.
That close.
And that's what I got, the feel I got from a lot of these interviews. And I remember at the time, like, people saying like, oh, it's beautiful, but some of the bugs. So KDE Plasma 5, July 2014. We're now up to a Qt5 base. We got a new fresh coat of paint. This probably was one of the bigger visual overhauls, but still held true to the paradigm that KDE had put forward. But what about performance? What do we see with Plasma 5? Well, obviously, with any new release, we're talking 2014 here, you move to this new toolkit. There's going to be some issues. But as I was looking through the development pattern at the point releases all the way through, everything, every one of them, performance, resource, and Wayland. Those were the three consistent. We want better performance, better resource usage, better Wayland. And by about 5.17, so about a little over a year ago, KDE Plasma 5 desktop resource usage on par and beating in some categories XFCE.
Sure.
So when about was 5.17? Do we remember?
It was October 2019.
Okay, well, let me tell you this. It's before that. I have a blog post that I posted in 2018, and I was comparing all of the desktops, and KDE then beat XFCE in memory usage. And
really?
I mean, that's the whole point of the post. The whole point of the post is, guys, have you seen Plasma? It's fantastic on resource usage. And so I went out and did it. I put it on this little Intel Celeron J1900 that barely scooted with anything, and it ran Plasma.
I want to say it was around like .12, was 12.13 was when it got to that where you could put them side by side and compare. I think when some of the other refinements they had made, this last go round where it was like steadily beating XFCE in some areas, and it was stable, and you felt like you could put it, I could recommend this. So the one thing with XFCE, we talk about resource usage, but we also talk about stability. Like it's going to be there. It's going to be consistent. By this time, Plasma 5 is very consistent. You don't have all the breakages you had before. And it's, man, just to talk about like Cinderella story as far as like resource usage.
I mean, Plasma's on a trajectory that's, lowering the resource usage, and XFCE is kind of on an upward trajectory because they've transitioned from GTK2 to GTK3, and GTK3, just in general, uses more resources. So, yeah, they cross paths. The graphs cross there somewhere, and the Plasma is certainly on the winning side.
And I think even if you need to pull out even more, outside of the fact that Plasma will kind of figure it out for you, you just turn off all the animations, and it's so snappy.
Yep.
It's so snappy. So this does not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, I didn't think twice. I pulled out my old Acer. I think it's like a 2011, 2012. It's got like a dual core, if even, i5 in it. And I'm like, you know what? I previously had XFCE on it, or you know what? I had LXDE on it, I think, or something like that. Because it was just kind of like, hey, look, this thing still works.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna throw Manjaro KDE on here last year. That thing sings. It just runs beautifully. It's capped out at 4 gigs of RAM because it's a soldered on chip. Can't upgrade it. Can't do anything with it. It's like a little, one of those little Ultrabooks. But man, it runs, and it's really seems smart about at least the implementations I've seen, where it adjusts to the hardware.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it looks a little not as shiny as Manjaro on my desktop here, but it runs so smooth.
Yeah,
it runs
you got a bottom of the barrel
nice.
CPU, dude. You don't get those features, but
no.
you can turn them on. They'll be slow, but it'll work.
You can turn them on and chug away. Yeah, but the fact that it can run and the advancements that were made. So we pair that with the advancements they've made. We pair that with now Neon, so back full circle. So Neon's really started to come about when Plasma 5 started to come about. If we look at the time frame, because it became their kind of their testing ground. But also we see in 2017 KDE Slimbook, the 14 and 15 inch versions shipping KDE Neon.
Yep.
So for not a distro,
right?
Yeah,
as was pointed out,
it's in a list full of distros.
Man, it seems to be if they're shipping it on hardware, and this isn't like a development only type thing. This is just hardware to users. that's significant, I think. In fact, I went and looked today. Yeah, I've spec'd one. I looked, it's got the brand, that new 4000 series Ryzen mobile processor, the Ryzen 7 4800H.
Nice machine.
Good.
How does that stack up against the M1 chip?
Well, I don't know, actually. You know what? Have we done that? See, they're so big about trying to trounce Intel. I don't know if they're moving with the mobile Ryzen 7 yet. I'm not sure. But yeah, so KDE Neon, that was really our venture into this. You know, if you look at all the development that's happened, they obviously have put a lot of love into this desktop environment, and not just focused on a quote unquote distro, because we hear that a lot. But they're trying to get you to be able to do things with their desktop environment. So they want, Kdenlive, right? I mean, all of these different, what do you do? They're working on these apps also that tie the whole desktop together to make it one working experience. Yeah. Now, there are other distributions that are working on this. We know Elementary's working on some things like that. GNOME even has some apps and stuff. But I'd venture to say that as far as Linux goes, and I think some of the other distros like Linux Mint, they've put out some apps and things like that. But really, feels like KDE is not to that level, right? Nobody to that level.
Everybody has their apps, and there are groups that put apps together, but it's not like this. And for as cheesy as it is, having K on the front of everything, it's cheesy.
It makes it easy to find.
But exactly, not only that, but it gives you that sense of cohesion. Mm-hmm. There is a money application. There is a browser application. There is every single thing. Kdenlive. There is a video editing application. There is a image manipulation application in Krita. And you go to apps.kde.org and you can see this is, and I mean, for as just to make the comparison, this is the same kind of thing that you're getting on the Apple side with GarageBand and Safari and everything else. They really are targeting that this is it. This is all you need. And they're making a big push for apps.
I will say that you might even find multiple applications that do the same thing. So I know, for instance, like you mentioned K My Money. There's also Scrooge, and they're very similar, but a little bit different, geared just a little bit different. And so there's applications for your applications, it seems like.
Yep.
Yeah, and also we've seen some of these KDE apps end up in Windows.
Oh yeah, many.
And the way they broke it out, it makes it feel not like an afterthought. So if I'm a developer and I'm like, oh, you know what, I guess let me work on this in my part-time. And it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like they've got teams dedicated to projects they love with the applications. They've got teams that are dedicated to the desktop environment. They have teams that are dedicated to the framework and what they're doing with that at large. So it really, really makes for a different type of environment. And I don't think they get enough credit for that personally. I really don't. I feel like they get stacked up against everybody else again. And I'm famously, or not famous. I'm not famous whatsoever.
No,
but I've been known
now,
as the GNOME guy. Spent a lot of time on Pop! OS, love Pop! OS, spent a lot of time in GNOME since GNOME 3. And really, this deep dive and really started with OpenSUSE for me again, getting back into KDE and going, wow, man, and just really opening your eyes to all the development that's happening within this one project that is multiple projects.
Yeah. What struck me was how many KDE applications I was already using every day.
Oh yeah,
right.
And then it was like, oh, but they feel native here.
Yes.
Like it integrates in here. Yeah.
Right. And that is nice because sometimes, again, coming from the GNOME world more, I'd go look for my app that was a GTK3 app. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, all right, there it is. And then you realize like, oh, they have one. They have another app that's already a native app that's Q5. And oh, let me try that
and
app.
It's got a K in the name.
They're good apps.
Right?
Yeah. They're good apps. So, guys, so we, I guess, a little bit more about KDE Neon. Again, it comes in the user edition, developer edition. It's running currently on Ubuntu 2004 LTS. They'll rebase again, 2204, I guess. Plasma 5. So we've heard talk about the 6 QT toolkit that'll be coming down the road. Again, it seems like every time you have to update to a new, GTK4 or whatever it is, all these things they're going to bring their host of unknowns and going to have to work through things, but hopefully not too much,
right?
Because I'm really happy with it. Dolphin as the file manager, I think's really good. Discover has come a long way, and that's their package management of choice. I think it works great. It's running on kernel 5.4 currently. Kwin's the display manager, and you can get it on X, and they have put a lot of work in Wayland development the last couple of years as well. They are really trying to push forward for that. So, guys, KDE Neon, what do you think? Should it be? Should it exist? Should we recommend it? Should we not?
Well, I think it has its place, right? So I think the big takeaway as far as place is you have to know the caveats before you jump right in. I don't feel like this should be your daily driver unless you're ready to deal with all of the plasma bits, coming down through the fire hose and potentially breaking something, and having the incompatibility, and knowing how to deal with that and work around it. If you're not prepared for that, this probably isn't for you. And I would have to think that most people fall into the category where they just want to load it up and have it work. They don't want to have to mess around. So if you're okay with that and you're ready to deal with it, then great, go for it. Maybe you put this on a testing machine, or maybe you're working on some of the KDE applications and whatnot. Therefore, this would be great. That's where I feel.
I'm a little more warm on Neon, to be honest. Not a single episode of this show have we recorded, and I have made the decision to record on that distro. I've never felt comfortable enough. Not once, except for on Linux Mint because, I'm already there.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah, well. The only other time that it's happened is right now.
Wow.
I'm on KDE Neon now, and a lot of that stability can be attributed to the Ubuntu 2004 base. So, right there, that's already one of the big things that makes me feel comfortable doing this. But the other is that I started on 5.20.2, and while it's a minor revision number to .3, I went through, did the upgrade to .3, not a single thing broke. A week later, the 5.76? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was the KDE framework that came down, and that was hundreds of updates.
Oh yeah,
and I did that, and everything was stable. So I'm not saying run out and go put this on your system or anything like that. Dan's right. Know that what you're getting into. It is air quoting, quote unquote, not a distro, but man, it's stable for that. And it might start to show its age toward, when 2204, Ubuntu 2204 is coming out, getting ready. The betas are coming out, QT, this and that, whatever issues. But, as I'm sitting here right now, I haven't seen any kind of, nothing exploded. I've been having a great time on this, living on the bleeding edge of Plasma. It's been very, very nice. So stability is great.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Leo. I've been running KDE on Manjaro, so again, I obviously don't mind things breaking.
Sure,
and of course it's okay for the 500 updates a day.
Yeah. We like to, I'm in that class of punish me. Like I want to do all the things and I want to play, but. I was just thinking okay, so what if my draw to be on Manjaro or Endeavor or just straight up Arch was the latest desktop environment? Not so much, because now with flatpaks and snaps, I'm getting the latest software. That's not a problem. I feel like I've got the current stuff. And I was thinking with Neon, again, if you're on snaps and Flatpaks, well then, if the desktop environment is updated, the framework is updated, maybe it's not so bad heading towards the end of 2004 and into 2204. But maybe you don't want to deal with all the cruft that comes with running an Arch base or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the stability of Ubuntu. That's pretty, reliable. And then now you get to play with the latest and greatest of the desktop environment, which is what you're doing anyways. So it's about what we're doing with our computers, because if it's just to update them and look, like most of us do things.
Yeah,
like we've got jobs.
Anyway.
We want to work on our
Yeah.
computers. So maybe we'd rather have a little bit of this stable base, but we're excited about KDE development or something like that. Maybe this is for you.
It's a great way to handle this situation where you want the newest of the new of this, but everything else needs to not move.
Right.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to worry about a new kernel coming in and you having to go, oh man, that messed me up. Like I thought I might have had my issue with OpenSUSE and 5.9.
Right.
I thought, okay, am I going to have to roll this back because I wasn't sure with NVIDIA? Like those issues aren't as prevalent. You can, have more of that stability from Ubuntu. Thank you, Ubuntu. You're amazing. And get the latest, greatest. So if that's your cup of tea, have at it, man. Again, this is Linux. We're here to learn, I think. That's the way I look at it. I'm always trying to learn. So a lot of people, maybe they're past the learning stage and they just want, Ubuntu. No offense, Ubuntu.
You want the most boring thing ever. Yeah.
To me, it's just like, okay.
But boring
and
is
that's
good.
fine.
Boring
Sometimes
is good.
it is. There's
Yeah, it is. Again, depends on what you're doing
Right.
with it. But if this excites you and you want to throw it on a machine, man, I think have at it. I think it's a good blend.
Yeah. And I mean, we've been talking up Plasma for a little bit, and I mean, I gotta talk more about the performance. My laptop, and every single distro we do, please tell me if I'm lying to you, if I don't tell you at least once where it's like, it's on my laptop, it's a little slow. Yeah. Not this time.
Yeah.
Plasma is amazing on lower spec hardware. On this laptop, 20 minutes, 30 minutes into a session in any GTK-based desktop, things get chunky. You minimize something, the frames drop. It's not 30, 60 frames a second, sliding right into where it needs to be. It does on my desktop where I've got the big beefy hardware, but not on my laptop where I've got this U-series i5. It wasn't this way with Plasma.
Poor soul.
I know.
Poor soul.
Hey, but it's great. It's perfect for what I need right here. Just in GTK-based desktops, it gets annoying, and I like the eye candy. So, but with Plasma though, it's just not that way. Everything remains smooth. The only time I ever saw a frame drop in Plasma was when I was recording video with OBS. And that's already CPU intensive.
Yeah.
So I can forgive Plasma for that. But it blew me away. And the same with that Celeron J1900. It just didn't skip a beat. It was fantastic. I will say, though, one thing you got to get used to on Neon, single click.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a Plasma default,
It is.
I think. And it's that way in Fedora too. But here's my thing. If you're going to be single click, make it single click. Did you guys download anything from any GTK-based app to get a file explorer of any kind?
I don't believe in such
Yeah, I
things.
don't think I did.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
when
didn't.
you do that, you realize the GTK-based applications do not respect the single click.
Oh.
Oh.
There's got to be a setting buried
Oh,
somewhere
I'm sure
where
there
GTK
is.
just doesn't
Yeah.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Uh-oh.
no, no. If you're going to make me single click this and that and everything else, you better make it single click everywhere. So that kind of
That makes me want to say, respect the click, Karen.
seriously.
All of you under 15 will understand
I
the
need
reference.
you to just single click all the things. Okay.
Yeah. Respect the drip. I mean, the click. Very cool.
You mentioned it earlier, those apps. They work on Windows, and that's one of the coolest things ever.
It really is.
Some of them take some getting used to. I am used to because I deal with MP3s and tagging and all that stuff all the time. And easy tag is easy. It's named well. It does what it does very well. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm on Neon. I'm going to try and do all this stuff, but I'm going to do it with the Plasma stuff. And so which one is that? That's Kid 3. It just got picked up as a KDE app. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I'm ready. I was lost. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to multi-tag anything. I'm sure there's a way. I still haven't figured it out. But, all of the apps are kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
You got Celluloid on all the GTK-based things, most of them now. And then you got Dragon Player over here. You got Screenshot over there, and you got Spectacle over here. The thing that got me every single time with Spectacle is that in most distros, I can just type snap. Yeah, this is a Windows thing, I'm sorry. But I can type snap, and the screenshot application will come up. Not Spectacle. I had to remember to type spec. Otherwise, it just...
I just hit the print.
No.
Even in KRunner, really?
So
maybe I always
KRunner
type,
should do
snip.
contextual search as well. But the menu might not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that may have been the difference.
Actually, it did. It didn't. It doesn't.
Really?
Show.
That's unfortunate.
Well, I think most people do screenshot, and that would be more contextual than snapshot, which is a Windows thing.
Yeah.
And because their thing is called a snipping tool, and
snip.
So I would type snip or snap or whatever. Yeah. So that got me. But I mean, that's one of the things that you got to get used to. If you're coming from a GNOME world, if you're coming from a GTK world, you don't have to, because you can install the GTK based app. But if you want to, give me the Plasma, there's some getting used to. You got to do some getting used to on that.
Well, so guys, what is happening with this install on your computers? What you doing with it?
I'm probably going to roll over it. I hate to say that, because Plasma is one of my favorite desktop environments. Probably, it's in the top 5, no doubt.
I don't believe you.
But I'm gonna roll over it. It's
top 5. Like what's 1 through 4? Now I got to ask.
Well, I haven't gone through and sorted them out, so.
Oh, you
just
you made up a sports reference.
Up there.
I don't know.
That guy's top 10 all time.
LXQt is at the top. I'm sorry, Joe. That's number 1. Always will be. It's my love.
It's your baby. It's where I live. It's where you invest your heart and time.
But we're so close now, though.
But they are. It's like they're cousins.
Yeah.
It's great.
They're cousins. Is LXQT's using Q5 as well?
Yeah, same toolkit. Yeah, a lot of the same. There's a lot of similarities there.
I mean, it's like a brother from another mother.
Yep. So it's close, but I'm rolling over it because, I don't have time for all these.
Yeah, it's what you
fire
do.
hose.
Yeah, man, we know. Look,
updates coming at me.
One day we're going to try something, and nope, it's going to be the same. But maybe you'll keep it for a month.
We'll see.
I don't know. What about you, Leo?
Look, let me tell you something. I love Plasma. Oh my God. The amount of things that you can do with it. Everybody has this thing where they're like, oh, I don't like Plasma because it's got 7,622 different options. No, those are great. You don't have to touch them. Yeah. You don't have to, but I do. And I make it exactly the way that I want it to be. Oh man, I turn off gradient over here. I add transparency over here. I throw some blur over here. Oh, terminal blur with transparency. One of the best things in my entire life. It makes me so happy. To be honest with you, I think I'm going to keep Neon on this machine for a little while. I want to find out if this QT, this or that, whatever, I'm just going to see what happens. And if it blows up, it blows up. I'll report on that, whatever. But right now, it's not a casualty. I'm keeping it. It's so nice.
Awesome.
When hardware enablement comes out, I'll be a happy camper. I'll put it on my desktop too. Keep it on my desktop.
Very cool. I'm already running Manjaro KDE, which has got me pretty close. I will leave this on my laptop because I am too curious for the naysayers that were like, it's going to break. I want to see it break. I want it to break on me. So I will keep it going.
Maybe they fix those issues. Who knows?
They're probably more like truthers. I'll give them that. We've used it for a month. So, we'll see what happens coming forward. But great implementation. I like it. It's simple. It's easy. And KDE has just become a whole, my little love these days. So it was nice to be able to have a show kind of dedicated to that desktop environment as well as Neon and the great work they're doing over there.
Yeah, what a great KDE corner.
Yeah.
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Keeping the house.
No, it doesn't work at all.
Come on, Leo. Get a clue.
No, we don't want that guy coming in.
Housekeeping.
I tried.
Yeah. Housekeeping.
That sounds creepy, Joe.
You need a pillow fluff.
Creepy Joe.
You're not answering the
No.
door, right? Somebody comes to the door.
Yeah, you
Housekeeping.
slowly put the lock on there. Yeah, just with as little noise as possible.
So sorry.
It's like Lurch from the Addams Family.
Yep.
Housekeeping.
The Linux community has some fantastic members, and we want to make sure to highlight that. In our podcast showcase for this episode, we have Full Circle Weekly. That's right, Full Circle Weekly. This is a podcast that is part of the Full Circle magazine and is hosted by our very own Leo Chavez. Leo,
Who?
Me!
$sign,
This
$sign.
guy. The one.
You been moonlighting $sign?
All the time. Turns out I'm on two others, right? I mean, and Full Circle Weekly News is one of them.
I'm cutting your check.
Yeah. Well, see, with the hiatus, the indefinite hiatus of tabs not spaces,
Mhm.
you could get your news fix with Full Circle Weekly News. It's a lot of the same stuff, but not a robot. How about that?
Yeah.
It's a real live,
Wow.
actual blood in the veins person, right?
Really, it's no, hi, this is Leo Chavez. Here are the notes for today.
You know what? You know what? Maybe if I get enough feedback on this, maybe I'll do an episode that way.
No, please
That
no.
would be great. I would like to guest star on that one.
Yeah, come on, bring a news story with you.
I'll be the robot.
There you go.
Hi, Leo.
I love this show mostly because it's short.
Yes.
If you have 5 minutes or less in your day, actually in your week,
Yeah.
then you can get all of the news from the Linux ecosystem straight to your brain, right through your ear holes. And yeah, I mean it's there. It's compact. I try to do each segment 30 seconds or less. Every news story, 30 seconds or less. Three main points. That's it, and we're done.
Well, I keep recommending this sort of show, and this one's lived through the test of time and hopefully continues, unlike some of the other ones that I've recommended.
Woo! If anything happens to me, man, I will hand it off to someone else. It will not die. Won't let this thing die.
Dan is the official nail in the coffin for podcasts. So
may-
don't mention this one.
maybe I need a
on
break.
this
I don't
show,
know.
I don't know.
Dan.
Yeah, it's my favorite style of show, so I keep recommending. Feel free to send your emails and feedback to contact@linuxuserspace.show. If you like what you hear on this show, please consider sponsoring us on Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/linuxuserspace. Please follow us on Twitter @linuxuserspace to get all the latest announcements for this show and highlights for things that impact your user space. We also have our Telegram group. In fact, even some of the questions we've talked about today have come from Telegram. So head on over there to continue the conversation.
Give us feedback and ask us questions and decide the way that the show's going to go.
And laugh at GIFs.
Oh, plenty of those.
GIFs.
GIFs.
GIFs,
Laugh,
peanut butter, crunchy.
laugh at all
Yes,
of it.
sir. Just like a giraffe.
Sure. Hey, Gnome.
Lastly, don't forget to rate this podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast application, and like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. You can always get more information at our website, linuxuserspace.show.
This is App Focus, where Joe focuses on an app.
Or a dash hound.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about Kdenlive. So we talked enough. No, we didn't. We didn't talk enough. We did not talk enough.
We need more K apps. Yeah.
Yeah, we need all the K apps, all the Plasma, all the K apps, all the everything. That's what we're trying to do to you. Give you more K. K? K. All right.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
what is Kdenlive? It is a full-featured, multi-audio, multi-video, track editing application with filters here and filters there, with compressors and wipes and everything that you would need. It's got all the features that plants crave.
Mhm.
It's getting more stable. Every single release, if you look back in history, you're going to see every single person complaining about how crashy it can be. I've been doing all of my YouTube videos, of which I think there may be like a half dozen now. I mean, so I'm saying like there's not that many, but
Oh, you mean
every single
all of them.
All.
Every single one of those 6. Yeah, all of them. And I mean, they're not very long, right? They're 10 minutes, but they are multi-video because I don't do everything in one take.
Yep.
I do a little bit of audio editing in there. I do video editing. I do some filters. I do wipes. I add text, all this kind of stuff. And so I am not a professional, what do you call this, producer, videographer, whatever it is, and I've not had Kdenlive crash on me but one time. And when I started it back up, it was like, hey, we noticed you crashed. Here you go. And it just picked right back up where I left off. So I was pretty impressed by that.
Sure.
And it does what it does, and I think is really intuitive at how it goes about it. You want to clip something out? Click on the little scissors thing. It'll take care of you. If you want to wipe from, transition from one video to another, you grab one side of one video, drag it over the other video, and then press play. And that's it. And it'll do this fade transition from one to the other. Now, I mean, admittedly, it took me a little while to figure that out because, I mean, I didn't expect it to be right there on the timeline, but it was. And when I got it, I was like, oh, that was like the easiest thing in the world. I don't know how I missed that the first time around, but it was really good. So, yeah, I mean, if you're not a professional, if you want that, it's not quite Movie Maker or what's the Apple one?
iMovie.
Yeah.
iMovie, right? I mean, it's not quite there, but I mean, it's got, I think, a lot of features that those do not. And if you're looking to start somewhere that is really easy to get started with video making, whatever that means to you, and work your way up to the point where, I don't know, maybe it does get a little crashy when you have like 7 different video tracks and 18 different audio tracks and 45 different filters on it. Maybe it does, but I don't get that far up there, and it is fantastic. So for a, easy to use, easy to get started with, and just quick video editor, this is it. This is the one you want to try, and it works just fine in desktop environments that are not Plasma,
Right.
because I do most of my work in Cinnamon. But it works fantastic in Plasma as well. So you guys had any experience with it? Messed with it at all?
Well, I produced 4 movies.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. No, I haven't.
For Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for Warner Bros. Yeah. However, I do have some video that I am going to be editing in Kdenlive coming up soon. So
You let me
yes.
know if it crashes. I want to know what triggers this.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna blame it all on Leo.
Okay, do it. # blame Leo.
Blame the dollar.
So I'm in the same boat as Joe, but I will say, I've also heard people use this for an audio editor as well. So I know Cubicle Nate does this. He edits all of his audio in Kdenlive.
I'm very excited about this. I had heard about this about a month ago, and I just have not had the time to really dive in and figure out how good of an audio editor it is. So I'm going to have to go and pick his brain and figure out how he does his stuff, because if I could do all of my work in Kdenlive, record in Audacity and then just do it all in Kdenlive, because it's non-destructive.
Right.
Versus Audacity, which is, and it just eats up your disk. Then yeah, I think I would make the switch. If my stuff is there, I would make the switch.
Coming up next time, we're going to be talking about subjects that hopefully you care about and that we care about. So that'll be our episode where we have our discussions. But we are going to be kicking off a new month with a new distro.
Rebecca Black Linux.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
Please, no.
Oh,
No,
man.
it's not.
I keep putting it in the list.
Get out of
And
here.
you keep
It's
telling
not-
me no. I'm so glad
It's
we're
not
going to do
her.
it.
I can't.
Aw.
I can't do it. So we are going to be doing Arco Linux. So Arco Linux, interesting, very interesting, a different take. If you haven't looked at it, go look it up. Really big on education. I don't know how many videos they have put together.
Like well over 1,700. No joke.
All
There you
of
go.
them.
1,700 videos. You want to learn Linux. You want to learn anything you want to learn. I don't know. You could probably learn how to build like carpentry, like tables, like, I don't know, bookshelves. I don't know. They have a lot of videos. But that is where we're going to be focused this next month. It's an interesting distro. It's different. It's got a different take on things, and we hope you'll join us.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and for all the support that you give us each and every episode. Well, where can we find you, fine folks?
You can find me at KC2BEZ.
You can find me at Jojo_PHET.
And you can find me at Leo Chavez. Join us in 2 weeks when we return to the Linux user space.
You can pick the noise right out of there, I think, looking
Cool.
at the waveform.
That'd be great. That's probably easier to deal with.
Okay.
Last time I disabled the gate, my dogs got out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Northern New York, I have issues. Hey, we established this the other night on Biddle that Northern New Yorkers pronounce things strange.
Yeah. Well, I can identify, now that I live in Georgia, where pronunciation is kind of a thing sometimes. There is a town called Houston. There's a county called Houston, which is spelled exactly like Houston, that big city.
You know what? I can get the Houston one, though. Because that is kind of like house.
Yeah. Have you been to Martinez, Georgia?
Oh, what?
It's spelled Martinez, but it's Martinez.
Martinez.
Y'all come down see me in Martinez. I was driving through. I'm just, how did they name that town?